Well, hello, happy Wednesday or hump day. I'm glad to be here with everyone. Thanks for joining me. And we can say that Mercury's out of retrograde as of Monday this week. Yet, for those of you that follow astrology and things like that, we still have kind of a couple more weeks before we really feel the energy of it gone. Um, I have Susan Miller's Astrology Zone calendar. I don't know if y'all know her, but anyway, her calendar is just chock full of stuff. And she said if you have an important venture or project or um, something that's really meaningful to you, to wait till like the 22nd to do something with it, take action on it. So that's just a little FYI, because communication stuff can still get a little wonky. After Mercury retrograde ends, there's not a clear cut off, if that makes sense. So just wait a little bit longer. Anyway, thanks for joining me. I have lots of questions to get to today, so I am going to start with the Akashic prayer, and let's just see what the guides want to bring in and share or impart any kind of wisdom or guidance, and then we'll jump into the questions. Okay. I ask God if He will have a shield of love and truth around you permanently, so only God's love and truth will exist between you and me. I allow the masters, teachers, and loved ones of you to channel through me out of whatever realm to say whatever they wish. I ask the permission of the Lords of the Akashic Records, so I'm able to look into the records of you and remove whatever information I'm allowed. Okay. Okay. Let's see here where we're going to start. So, okay, I don't know if y'all all get my newsletter or not, but yesterday, and the guides want to talk about this a little bit. Yesterday, I sent a newsletter out, and I talked about artificial intelligence and how people are asking ChatGPT, I guess in some of the other ones, questions about consciousness, about spirituality, mindfulness, the psychology, I mean, just all kinds of things. And it's really been fascinating to explore. Can certainly be a rabbit hole kind of adventure to look. Anyway, one of the things in particular that the guides want to talk about is how one of the responses that artificial intelligence gave, and I don't even remember the question, was they said that you, human, here watching this, are an avatar for your higher self. And so what they want to expand upon is that higher self of you is that soul essence of you. It's that divine part of you that's here in this physical body. And that higher self is the part of you that is connected to all, if that makes sense, which of course you are too, because you're here in concert, with your higher self. And one thing that really led me, I would say, to get into meditation was that I wanted way back when, I think I was in my 20s, wanted to connect with that higher self, because I knew that's where all the internal wisdom resides, that we all have all the answers, right, for ourselves, what we know is true for us, and all the guidance we really need is within. And I knew way back then that our higher self contained that inner wisdom. And so being able to connect with that, I imagined at the time would just open up worlds of information for me. Anything I wanted to know would be accessible. And, while that didn't happen overnight, it happened nonetheless. And it's what meditation and connecting with that inner wisdom is really what put me on the path to what I'm doing now, and learning how to access that just divine guidance as a whole. So they would love for you to understand that you do represent your higher self. And if you could think about that divine part of you is having the experiences here through you. And if you could get in touch with that part of you, you would understand a little bit more about what you want to do here. And so much we get caught up in the human daily stuff that we disconnect from that part of ourselves. And so the guides they would always encourage meditation, somehow, some way, some form, where that you come into that present moment with yourself and you are just there. And just so you know, meditating, a lot of people don't stick with it because it takes so long for that mind chatter, or monkey mind, as you might hear it, to cut off. And in my experience teaching meditation, it takes at least 45 minutes for that to start to shut off, sometimes 60 minutes. And so most people don't stick with it long enough to really figure that out. 15, 20 minutes is about 30 maybe is what people give it. So the guides would encourage you to really find a way to make meditation a part of your practice. You know, whether you listen to guided meditations, you know, whether you can be with yourself, just in that place of silence and stillness. And yes, you can do walking meditations, you can do running meditations, and yet there is a difference when you can sit with yourself. I mean, just really sit with yourself and observe the tendency to want to be distracted and go do something or think of something, or I got to write that down. And it is a discipline. It really is a discipline. So what the guides are saying, they're going to give you a little quick tip, because not everybody can just take 60 minutes and wait for the mind chatter to shut off. And so a quick tip into connecting with your higher self. They said there are two things they would do. And one, they would, now if you're here live or you're home listening to this, and you're in a place where you won't be distracted and you be still, they would ask you to close your eyes for just a minute. Now, if you're driving or doing something and just listening to this on a replay, obviously keep your eyes open. So those of you that can be in that place where you close your eyes, they would like for you to just take a couple of deep breaths and really allow yourself to be here in the present moment. Be here with the messages that are coming through. Feel yourself surrounded by this divine energy and feel the divine part of you that's connected to that. And they would have you bring your awareness into your heart and just focus on that heart energy. Let your awareness just be at your heart. And they said, in that place where you can be at your heart and just be in this moment, it's an opportunity to be grounded. And heart energy, even though it is that, you know, a higher chakra, it's not your root chakra, it can still ground you because you just come back to the wisdom of the heart. And you become aware of how your body's feeling. And if it's tired, or if it's anxious, or if it's like ready to get on to the messages, they want you to just notice all of that. But when you feel disconnected and you want to be connected, they said to bring your awareness to the heart and just breathe into that heart energy, you know, in and out, you know, feel your chest expand, you know, as you inhale, and feel it deflate as you exhale, and just feel peace, you know, permeating from that heart all the way, you know, out through your body into your aura. So that's one thing. Now you can open your eyes if you like. The other thing they said is to get a notebook, to get a journal, even if it's a pad of paper, and just write. And they said to ask a simple question of your higher self, and listen for that answer. Write whatever first impulse is to come back. And if it's sarcastic, now they are funny. Oftentimes your guides are funny Your higher self's going to be funny. But your higher self is going to speak with a different tone of wisdom, much less likely to be as funny as your guides, if that makes sense. But listen for the reply. And this is how you will start to understand that information is coming from something else that you're accessing, that greater part of yourself. And that's going to be a little bit harder, but it's worth the practice, if that makes sense. Okay, let's see if they have anything else. Well, they said too, they would recommend getting something different than a journal. And they would have you, because part of this is going to train your brain and heart to work together here. And they would get a notebook or something that you keep separate. This is new information. I've never had this tool before. But they said they would have a notebook specifically for connecting with your guides and one connecting with your higher self. That higher self will feel like more of a journal, but they still recommend keeping it separate. And so when you pick up the higher self notebook, like, this is my time to communicate with my higher self, it's going to feel different than when you pick up to communicate with your guides, or when you just pick up a journal to do the mind dump kind of thing. So that's a really neat exercise to try. Okay. All right. We are going to jump into questions here. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Now I've got several questions mailed in today. And I go in the order I receive them. And then, as always, if we have time, we'll get to any that you guys here live today have. Okay, first question. It is so interesting that everyone's journey includes grief. Different levels, yet everyone experiences grief at some point. I wonder why this is a part of everyone's journey. Wow, that is a great question. And I don't think that has ever been asked before. So let's see what the guides would say here. So grief is certainly, it's a big emotion, and it is a big part of this journey here, obviously, because this journey is temporary, and most of us have watched, our loved ones pass, and so forth, animals, all of it. We've all experienced grief, just like this person asked in the question or noted. And so grief is so many things to different people. And for some, they're experiencing extreme amounts of grief in this lifetime, because they will actually work as, bereavement counselors or guides in another lifetime. Or some could be balanced in a lifetime where they played a role where they were responsible for substantial amount of loss of lives. And so they could be balancing that experience of loss in this lifetime, just really understanding the power of it. They said some grief is here, and for most of us, to bring us into that present moment and really put us in touch with our feelings, our lives, how we're being here. And so it's kind of one of those built-in things, like almost like a wake-up call, and an opportunity to reevaluate what we're doing here. Grief, now we're talking about loss of life in particular, but there's all kinds of loss. But when we do feel loss, it activates our desires, and it activates our longings. And often we need remembering, to be reminded what those are. And sometimes we're kind of clueless, and grief really brings that present for us. It really helps us determine what's important and what matters. And yeah, it's really interesting. I did a reading for someone, and who, when I met with last year, it looked like her grandmother was close to leaving. And that came through in the reading. And today, when we checked, like, doesn't even look close. And she said that she said lots of prayers, numerous prayers, significant ones, with a lot of depth and emotion. And her prayers worked. And so that's another thing too. Even the thought of losing somebody, if you don't know if you're going to see them tomorrow or later that day, even the thought of grief can create us to take an action because something is so important to us. And in that action, we're connecting with the divine, and it's truly heart inspired. We can alter some of these paths that we're on. And so that was a genuine, heartfelt request and desire that came forth. And so uh, it was granted. And her grandmother doesn't have to go. There's other things that her soul is, clearly here, willing to stay and work with. So think about that too. Just even allowing yourself to understand the grief that could happen in a situation and what it inspires in you to do. And we all need that kind of guidance, that kind of reminder that grief offers. The other thing that grief does is, one, they said brings closure to a lot of relationships. Two, it brings unity to a lot of relationships. And three, it allows, this is a big one, it allows those of us here in the non-physical. Now, again, when I'm talking about loss of life, whether it's loved one, animal, but it allows us to create a bridge to connecting with those in spirit and really begin that understanding of the language of the non-physical, if that makes sense. So the desires, being aware of, and understanding the language of non-physical, probably the two biggest things. A lot of times when someone transitions, because our sensitivities, are so raw, we feel everything to the nth degree, and that's a part of opening up that intuitive channel. So there's a lot happening with grief. It's very necessary. That's a great question. Okay. I have a milestone birthday coming up mid-January next year. I've never been out of the country, thus I'm thinking of taking a trip to Montreal and Quebec City. I've also had Salt Lake City on my mind or radar to visit. With the upcoming tumultuous weather predictions from Gaia in the Tom Moore book for next year, any guidance or suggestions on which of these two locations would be safer for me to visit mid-January in 2026? Okay. Well, they're taking safety out of the equation for you. They said they're not to worry either location, you would be safe. They are, however, putting preference for the Canada trip. And they said there is many rewards to be had there. It will be fulfilling and delightful surprises. Things you might notice about yourself, your life. They would advise you, if you're asking, to go there, they said. Mm-hmm. And it feels like if you do decide to go to Utah, even the next year or the next year or the next year, you'll be fine. Okay. This is fun. Okay. I'm currently going through a career change. There's one specific job I'm setting my sights on, but I've applied for a few others. It's a lengthy process, and I'm willing to wait for it. Should I be focusing on my energy on this one job? Okay, so they would say get into that heart space. And if you can think about that job and it feels good in your heart, you can visualize yourself being in there. There's a bit of a knowing that you can access. Um, so they would like to invite you to get out of your head space a little bit and get into your heart space and really think about that. And move towards the one that doesn't necessarily feel like a job, that feels like you would be going there with your heart in it. And it's a place that it's a place where you can see more for yourself, if that makes sense. Here, I am hearing the one job. To stay focused on that. And yet at the same time, you might have some other opportunities that pop up. And remember, this is so tricky. This is the stuff that's so tricky. When we focus on something so hard, we free up energy around us to take shape in whatever form it wants to. So you may find while you're focused on this one job that another one just shows up that maybe you didn't consider, or maybe looks better than it originally did, or, that's quite an opportunity. And I would say look at those opportunities and just be open to explore. You might, I know this sounds so conflicting, you might focus on this one job and yet be open to the opportunities that start to present. The one thing they're saying is that you need change, and you're taking step in that direction, and that's a big deal. And so you have to remember you're kind of co-creating with the universe, and they want to kind of hold your hand in this and lead the way. So watch for green lights around things, watch for doors to open, watch for conversations to be easy, watch for things to just, oh, that just worked out. Little synchronicities like that will help you know that you're on the right path and you're thinking about the right things. So the other thing I'm hearing is this one job will kind of pull you out of your comfort zone a little bit, and that also looks important. So yeah, focus on that, but appreciate the other opportunities along the way, because you might find you just do something temporarily until that one job really is available. So I probably didn't give you a direct answer, but hopefully that was helpful. Okay, this is so fun. Okay, here is my question. What unconscious agreements am I still holding that are keeping me anchored in the old earth? Okay, that's a great question too. Well, really, that's a really great question. And honestly, this answer's for everyone. And it's kind of like if you did read my newsletter, they're hitting home on this today. We are in that age of Aquarius, and Aquarians are known as the inventors of the zodiac. So this is not a time of ideas, of exploring, being innovative. It is about stepping out of the comfort zone and trying new things. And it's also largely about our intuition and trusting that intuitive side, which is also our divine feminine. And so when we talk about the old earth, we are talking about more of that masculine energy. And now remember, we need both. They are equally balanced. Yet we have been living in a more masculine dominated, kind of world earth society, that we're moving into more of the heart language, the soul language, the intuitive language. And so one of the things they would, one of the quickest ways to get into that right brain, if you want to, right brain is where the intuition is. It's where the present moment is. And that's really what we're talking about. So if we're doing things that keep us away from that, and so, yeah, you can't live here 100% in the right brain yet. Can you spend more and more time there? Yes. And is that things like painting, having some kind of craft or art, or that you just get lost in? It would be something like that. So how can you be more intuitive? How can you access that intuitive nature? How can you walk through your daily life just trusting in that inner wisdom? That's really what this time, this new earth is all about, where we're going. And so everybody's being invited to become aware of that. And it might be you are trying to have a connection with somebody in spirit that's passed, and you want to develop that non-physical language, so to speak. So that is an answer that is for everyone to consider. Oh, hang on, let me see here. It's like, gosh, there's just so much more going on here than, waking up and career and, worried about this, that, and the other, and our to-dos. It's like, oh, there's so much more going on here. And that's the stuff we're tapping into. They said, this is so funny. Now, I didn't know that when I wrote in my newsletter yesterday, I talked about the Avatar movie from 2009. I'm going to go back and watch that. They are saying that the avatar world that that man gets to go to in his avatar really represents the age of Aquarius and where we're going, what it can be like, and that would give you an idea. So how can you be more in that space? They said if they did anything for you who asked the question, they would look at the community and see how you can be a part of that community and share your gifts in that community, maybe in a different way than you have been. So this is such good stuff. Okay, got 2 more questions, and then we'll see. Okay. All right, I'm in a situation where it has been told to me by the forces that the way is clear for me to step out and be a leader. For years, I've been wanting to do YouTube, but have been waiting on the opportunity to step out. What message do the masters and teachers have for me? Okay, that's a great question too, because so many of us, can wait for that moment that it just seems like, okay, all the signs are there. All right, so for you, all right, they are saying this. Again, this can apply to so many. I love these questions, feel so universal today. They are saying they would look back at your life and the stories of your life, maybe the theme of your life, and they would have you really reflect on what I know now that I wish I knew then. Like, why didn't somebody tell me this then? Okay, that might be part of your message to start broadcasting, if that makes sense. And they said be clear with what you want to say to the world. Be clear with what helped you might help others. And it's like, not worry about the audience. That's not important. That will just come. But it's more about being clear with your message and your intent, and knowing that the message that you have might help somebody sooner than when it would have helped you. Does that make sense? At that same age. So let me see if there's anything else in particular. Yeah, they're telling me to tell you to start with like Instagram videos. And I'm not hearing YouTube right now. To start with little videos and just messages. Um, let me see if there's anything else here. So it's look at your life and your stories and your themes and what you have learned and the wisdom you have today because of it. And again, wish I would have known, then what I know now and how my life would be different. And can you give that wisdom to others that might be at that younger age and would run with it now, or even at an older age that can still take that information and run with it. So remember, your life experiences are your teachers, and so to speak, and it's brought you to who you are. And if you could impact the world in one way with, I would say, a message, maybe it's creating something, doing something, an idea you have, or in that age of Aquarius, what would that one message be that you just want everybody to know? Start there, because it's going to grow from there. Everything expands, nothing stays the same. And it will lead to more doors and more doors and more doors and more ideas. We are in this energy. I would also ask you to look at your zodiac sign and see how Uranus and Gemini is affecting your particular sign. And that will give you some insight to what this next 7 years is going to be about for you. So, let's see here. I know a few of the signs, but for any of you listening, I would check it out, because Uranus and Gemini is a big deal. It's a really big deal. And it's impacting each zodiac sign in a different way. So you look at your sun sign and your rising sign. So look at both. Okay. Thank you for asking that. Okay. All right. I learned to read the Akashic records a few years ago. It seems like I'm better at reading it for other people than myself. I would like to know if there's a blockage, and if so, what can I do to remove it? Or is there something I need to focus on dealing with the Akasha that I haven't tuned into? Thanks so much for your help. Okay. All right, let's see. Well, sometimes it's easier to read for others because we're not attached to, the information or the answers. And I would say the thing with working with your own guides, getting your own answers, one way would be to get into that space and really be formal about it. Have your notebook, say the prayer for yourself, and just write down your questions and sit there until an answer starts to come back. When it does, it will sound different. It will just sound so different than your voice. Guides will even use different language, a different tone, and you just know it's not coming from you, or you're making it up, if that makes sense. So they would have you get a little formal with that for a while, and whether you do that every morning or sometime, make that a point of your day to do. I'm not hearing there's anything blocking you. It's really just practice. They said it's just practice, and they would have you be willing to understand messages that can come through in ways you might not expect. So let me see how to explain that. They often talk in metaphors and similes, stories. So, for example, if you ask a question to your guides and all of a sudden you just start thinking about a movie, and you're like, well, what on earth? And why am I thinking about this movie now? That can be your answer. There could be something in that movie that you need to see or you need to be reminded of. So just be open. Those answers can come back in ways you have no idea. And what they're doing with that is expanding your language of the Akash, if that makes sense. Because as you do readings for people, random things are going to drop in and may mean nothing to you, but will mean something to them. And you've probably already experienced that. I would say trust everything. And if you get into your head and have doubt or what's the word I want? Maybe suspicions that this information isn't truthful, then you've lost the connection, if that makes sense. So go back to that place and just give yourself permission to trust whatever comes through, even if it doesn't make sense in paper right now, what you've written down, because it will. It will either later that day, later that week, but it will. It really will. So, I talk to my guides all the time, and I don't have to sit in that space anymore, unless sometimes I do if I'm really attached to an answer I want. I do have to get like in that meditative space and clear and present. Yet, my guides will answer me throughout the day with, oh my gosh, they could leave something in my path. They could make me see a sign if I'm driving that has a word on it of something I was thinking about. They are always listening and always answering. The other morning I was going somewhere. Now I'm in a new area and there's a street, and this happens to me all the time. And I was like, I wonder what's down that street. Well, later that day, I'm coming home from where I was, came down that street. That's how GPS routed me. So if you can understand that you're always being listened to, you're always being heard, you're always being guided, it's really be aware. Just be aware, trust everything, read everything as a sign. And that may be sounding exhaustive, but just read everything as a sign. They will use everything imaginable to show that they're there. It's okay. And the guides are telling me to tell you too, if it's helpful, you can give them a name. You can give them a collective name and start out even with dear, Silas could be a guide's name for you. And so it might be helpful for you to personify your guides a little bit so you do feel like there's an actual conversation happening. And again, that could be for everyone here wanting to be open to that. Okay, so good. Thank you for asking that. That's great. Okay. All right, so you guys, thanks for joining live. Let's see what we got here online today. Okay, you mentioned that joy and money are connected. I can have moments of joy, but maintaining it consistently is challenging. Can the guides help us understand this concept of living with joy consistently? Well, you don't have to be, that's a great question too. You don't have to be in joy 100% because we're not meant for that. Yet those moments of joy, can you bring a moment of joy into your day every day so that it starts to feel, familiar and more accessible? And so again, this is a process. It's kind of like watching money grow. And, in a savings account or an investment account, we watch it grow, right? It does. I mean, sometimes it grows overnight, but it is a gradual increase. And they said it's the same thing with joy, especially when we don't have a lot of joy in our lives. To all of a sudden want to have joy, it's kind of like winning the lottery. Same thing. And we want that just, sudden experience of it. So they said, be okay with the gradual increase. If you can incorporate something in your day, every day or once a week that brings you joy, eventually when you start waking up in the morning, and joy's already there and you feel excited about your day, that's really when you're in that flow. And you can let go of really efforting around joy. So think of it as a gradual process, and even moments of it sets a momentum, forward. It's not like I've had a joyful day and today's not a joyful day and now I got to start all over. No, the energy of joy is still there. It's still around, and you can tap back into that. So if you know how to be joyful, if you know how to access joy, it's in your ability to have more and more of that. Does that make sense? Um, and I listened to a woman a long time ago, and I've shared this before, but I loved her way of starting her day was the minute her eyes open, she lays in bed, and the first thing she says out loud is, something wonderful is going to happen today. And I'm like, God, that is just brilliant, and she says it until she feels it, and then she puts her feet on the floor and goes about her day. And that's something else you can do. And even if you don't believe it yet, it's like, just say it until you just feel like, you know what? The universe really is an abundant place. It is listening. Your guides are listening. And so I would say, give yourself permission to trust and believe that what you want is possible, and allow yourself to just be in this space of anticipation, eager anticipation. How about that? And just remember, it's a gradual movement. It's a daily practice. Part of that is because our guides want us to be so aware of our journeys and our power and our ability to be creators, and to really get in touch with that. So often we look at what's wrong, what's not working, what needs fixing, and we're problem solvers. And so we just get more stuff to solve, right? And instead, if we could get in that right brain and just look at what we're creating, what we're being, what we're doing, what we're choosing, what we're thinking, eventually that just becomes second nature. So hopefully that helps. That's a great question. Okay, I would love to have a message from the masters that it's important for me to know now about my current situation and moving forward on my path, please. Okay, let's see if they can give me something there for you. Okay. Well, they're telling me to tell you, and they've said this earlier, that your current situation is temporary. It's in motion. It may not feel like it, but it is. There are things happening that you're unaware of, that will reveal their support to you. So what they would like for you to do is find little clues and hits and signs that you are being supported and listened to. Give me one second. They show me... and again, those are those, if you're driving somewhere and you hit all green lights, you're on that right path. Or somebody smiles at you and gives you a compliment. It's like, be open to receive that you're being noticed. Hang on one second here. I'm seeing if they'll give me something specific for you. Give me one second here. Okay, they would like for you to trust in the hawk energy right now. They want you to be aware of hawk and trust in that hawk energy. Be open to that spirit animal and what it is offering you, and know that you have the power to tap into that right now. I'm not sure if that means anything to you in particular, but that's what they're showing. One second, let me see if there's anything. I'm not getting anything else right now to pay attention to. Let me see here. Oh, isn't that funny? All right, if y'all can't, if y'all are listening to this, she said, I call on Isis and was told when I see a hawk that she is near me. Oh, that's so awesome. Okay, here's another question. Do the guides have any advice how I can improve my relationship with my daughter-in-law in San Antonio? Okay. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so they are telling me to look at it this way. You are playing a role for her, so to speak, of a relationship that's unhealed in her life from ago, from a past. And she's just transferred that unconscious behavior, thoughts, reactions to you. And so part of it is they said to let go of taking this personally. And you've done a good job of that. And they would stay in that place and know that this is something. Buttons are being pushed for her. I would say she doesn't even know are active, but they're old things. And it's like, okay, she hasn't learned her lesson, so to speak, of what she needs to heal and soothe at this point. So now here you come, and it's stirred up for her again. So I would say this is a lot about her work and about you just staying in your authentic space, being kind, whatever that might be, being funny. I would say humor, not taking this seriously, not taking it personally, is really going to help you. And just understand she's got some growing to do. Let's say evolving to do. You represent something to her that's inaccessible within herself. Um, it could be a sense of freedom, a sense of a free spirit, where she might be a little rigid and she's not embracing that archetype of the free spirit that you're representing for whatever reason. Just continue to be you and be your bright light. And let me see if there's anything. I'm not hearing that there's a conversation you can have with her, or I feel like she's kind of uptight and unwilling to be vulnerable in any way. Hard for her to trust. So I'm not sure how you're going to break that open. Other than you could say some most benevolent outcome requests and, say some benevolent prayers, ask the angels and divine beings to assist in her, being open to be vulnerable. Tame that inner critic of hers, if that makes sense. Second here. I do feel like for some reason they show y'all shopping together. I don't know if y'all ever do an outdoor, just the two of you spend time together in bookstores or just shopping. I'm not sure if that's an opportunity you have, but it feels like she just needs to get to know you and see you're safe, even though you're different. Does that make sense? Like, different to her is scary, but that's just she's scared of those parts of herself. But it's great that you are aware of it and want to do something. Remember, sometimes this is you playing that role for her evolution, and there's not a whole lot you can do. But then again, we had somebody pray for her grandmother to stay, and she stayed. So prayer is powerful, and our sincere intent is powerful. Okay, this is so great. Okay. All right, you guys. We are good for today. This was so much fun. I'm so grateful for your questions and for y'all joining live and sharing. Y'all asked some fabulous questions that really, even though they might feel personal to you, they're just so full of information to help all of us here. So thank you, thank you, thank you for making time to be here to share and to have your questions. And I'm just so grateful you even open to those questions dropping in, right? So until next time, I will see you next Wednesday. Yeah. Y'all have a great week, and thank you again.